Good morning. Good morning. Wow. What a week. So many things going on in the news and the chaos in the country and a lot of unrest and people just are feeling some kind of way, as they say. How are you feeling this morning? What's your day like? What's it going to be? Outside my window, there's sunshine and I can see the trees and a bird just flew by. So I'm seeing. So that's a good thing. That gives me joy, the fact that I'm still able to see. I'm still able to hear. And so I know that I started off good. I don't know what else is going to come my way during this day, but I'm ready. I'm anchoring up. I'm getting ready for whatever's going to happen. I have my little cup of coffee here, and it says, "It is well with my soul," and today it is well with my soul. Good morning, Cassandra. It's well with my soul. I'm happy about what I've been placed to do every day, Monday through Friday. This is an exciting time for me. Every day I prepare, so it's not as if, it's like, something that was frozen in the freezer. No. Every day I sit down either at night. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm just given a nugget of something to talk about. But today's discussion is about our head. What's in your head? What is in your head? To me, what's in your head also says what's in your heart. It also says what's in your happy. It may be what's in your hatred, but what is in your head? Head is to me, the most vital part of one of the most vital parts of the body. If you can't think, if you can't, basically put things together telling you to do this or that, go here, go there, understanding what people are saying to you, it's all done through the head. No matter how you feel about it, the head is where it all begins. And so, I really try to look at just what the head and how important the head is. When they talk about the head of a household, that's the person that's running stuff. That's what the head does. Head's supposed to be running stuff for your body, for your life. That's what your head is supposed to do. And not everybody does it. Not everybody does it. Some people, they give their head away, heart away, their happy away every single day. They really don't. They really don't think about the fact that having that this is like a machine. It's like something that allows you to do multiple things all day long. To tell you, okay, it's time to, go void, or it's time to go write something, or it's time to take a walk. It's, that's important. And sometimes we do it without thinking about it. But we need to think through the process of what we have. We have some good stuff up here. We have our ability, and we need to do something with it. And so I just was thinking about, the fact that every morning I asked you, and I'm going to do it right now. Good morning, Ruth. Are you stuck? Yes, we are all stuck. Periodically throughout our lives, we're going to get stuck on many things. Now, we won't stay there. Just like this pandemic will not live forever in our presence. It's just like the loves we may have. They won't live forever in our hearts. We just understand that it's just not going to be like that. We have to be able to say that eventually this is going to pass. This is going to pass. And sometimes we don't believe it will, but it will. So today we're, of course I even give you a poem or a song. So I said today I was going to start with, basically what the head does and doesn't do. So this one, it just has EH. So apparently it's on that Poetic Underground on, I found it in Pinterest. And they always have good stuff. I don't know who the writers are, but they always have really good stuff. And they don't really claim it. It's just EH. I don't know who EH is, but it is not Sandy. By the way, My name is Sandy Winborn, and I'm glad to see you this morning, whoever stops by. So anyway, this poem says, there's a demon living in my head, but she answers to my name. She tells me stories late at night that are messing with my brain. When I stand before a mirror, she laughs at what I wear, the freckles sprinkled on my face, and the way I tie my hair. Do the people sitting on the train fight these demons too? The kind that make you doubt yourself and tell you what to do? Maybe that's why they never talk, because they're screaming in their head. Why would you hate someone else when you can hate yourself instead? And that'll tell you that sometimes talking to yourself in your head might have you off guard. Good morning, Lawson. Might have you off guard about whatever it is you're thinking about. And we have to understand that some of us do think kind of weird. We don't think right. And so certainly this suggests that the demons in our head could also be that chatter that just says we're off ground on this. We're off base. We really need to do something else with these thoughts that we have. You know, especially if they're mean thoughts, angry thoughts, even if you're looking at, you know, some of the rioting going on, or most of the people seem to be peaceful protesters, not rioters. But if you have something that infiltrates, you know, comes on in, starts something, you know, steals, you know, loots and all that kind of stuff, then that sets it up to being bad. But what they're marching about is good. If I were younger, I'd probably be marching too, but I don't put myself in that situation anymore, because I know that a stray rubber bullet would get me, because I'm the last one probably to leave the area, probably because I didn't hear it, or I just can't run that fast, okay? But anyway, we're just talking about what's in our head. How are we thinking? And sometimes we don't think right. So this is another one I have. It's called Lost Words, and it doesn't have a name as well. I like the anonymous, because then I can just say I don't know who wrote it, but it's pretty good. It said, the midnight scribble, a morning sigh. You watch the world, the words, curl up and die. Madness lives inside your head of poems lost and pages dead. A mind possessed by unmade books, unwritten lines, on empty hooks. See, this reminds me of the person that really has something to say, but they never get it out their head. You know, it comes at night, it comes, and you know, unless they got a pen or piece of paper by their bed, they never write it down. And I believe that information comes to us for a reason. Sometimes to do something with it, but a lot of times we don't. So it what I call creeps. So next thing you know, it creeps away, crawls away, and we forgot what we should have been writing something on. For myself, I'm going to tell you what I do is at night, I leave a piece of paper and pencil by my bed, and if I wake up and I got a thought, I start writing. Good morning, Carla. I start writing. I'll write it down, and then I can go back to sleep. It doesn't bother me. That was my time of what I call, you know, a message that I needed to get out my head onto paper. And a lot of times we don't do it. We do not do it. So anyway, when we talk about our head, we talk about certain things. To me, you know, you can give I'm going to give you the little bit of the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Good morning, Claudine. It talks about the head being the upper part of the human body. You know, basically it's the upper portion of the body that contains the cranial the cranial section of the brain. And it says it's like the chief principal. It's being the lead position is also, such as if you know somebody that heads up, you know, a department, or they might be called the chief. Like right now they keep talking about the chief of police, okay? But the chief in charge is supposed to be the president, okay? That means they're heading up something. But you also have to talk about what comes out of the head, not just what is called a head. So you talk about it being the skull, it being the cranium, it being the crown. You know, a lot of times I'm quite sure you've met people who have what I call a posture of achievement, a posture of authority. You want to listen to them. You want to do what is requested. And so it talks about also being the nut, the nougat, the noodle, and the nougat, or the noggin. It's talked about the noggin. So all those things kind of describe what a head is. But a head really is very important because somebody is either listening to it because it's required, okay, or it's the head is going to be providing the directions for the body to do or other people to do, that just says order, instruction, direction, all those kinds of things. That is what our heads are supposed to do, and those that are in a position of a head, they should be doing. So anyway, as I do, I break it down. And so breaking down today, I said surrounding the head, it starts with the H. And the H for me came up with harbor. And it says to keep a thought or feeling. It says typically a negative one that we carry in our minds, especially, secretly. Sometimes you don't even know that somebody may dislike you, hate you, basically are prejudiced against you, but you never know it unless something is illustrated, so that would be something that they harbor, And so I always ask people, or I look at people enough to figure out what are they harboring, what am I harboring? I try not to harbor anything because I figure what is done to me, somebody else is doing, or I don't want to do what somebody else is doing to me. That's what I meant to say. I don't want that. I try not to be prejudiced, although I don't think anybody probably has not been exposed to prejudice, but we understand it. But I don't want it to be something that I harbor where I'm afraid to say hello to a colleague who doesn't look like me, who doesn't act like me. I was raised in a household where we were basically told that you didn't sleep with them. You didn't sleep at the same place with them last night, so you say good morning. So if I see people, it's always good morning, please, and thank you. That's how we told. Now, my mother and father would, because they were born and raised in the South, they would not let us say ma'am because we lived in New York, and to them, that was a derogatory response to somebody. However, since I've moved here, I raised my daughter in the South, and so when we would go home, my mother would always get upset whenever my daughter would say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. But once again, it's the area of the country you live in. So I couldn't let my daughter go there and try to remember that. Sometimes she would, most times she didn't. She always said ma'am, and so my mother thought that was too much. But anyway, to get back to something that we would harbor, it's something that is that people bear. They nurse it along. It's almost like something that they nurture. It says they maintain it, they retain it, they foster it, they entertain it. And those are all the things that talk about what people do when they harbor things that aren't good. They keep it inside. And sometimes you may see it explode with certain things that they may do to other people or to what they say. Because sometimes people, they don't necessarily do anything physically to people, but it's something that happens emotionally to other people or psychologically to other people when they hear people say things that are hurtful. The next thing under head is certainly to educate. And it says that's what the head can do. It can also educate. It says to give intellectual, moral, or social instruction to someone, especially a child. Typically, it's at a school or a university. That is to be educated. But it also says that, to educate, you have to look at being instructive, But you have to also, to be educated, you have to have a willingness to learn. And so many people, they think everything they learned was in kindergarten. They don't want to learn anything else. But it says it's to learn, it's to teach, it's to tutored to go through a drill because if they said if you drill something, eventually it will be learned. It's to train, it's to guide, it's to enlighten, inform, develop, uplift, for those who are being positive. It's a betterment, and it's certainly improvement, and it's also to indoctrinate. So even that just says that if you stay under certain learning process for so long, it will remain with you. You don't even have to worry about it. You will exude it. If a child learns an instrument long enough and adapts to it, likes it, eventually they will be able to play it well, and they've claimed it as something that they've conquered. And to me, that's what education does. If you've learned something and you've learned it well, then that means it belongs to you because you know it. You know how to do it and how to use it. The next word I chose in head is articulate. And articulate is having or showing one's ability to speak fluently and coherently. And to me, coming out of what is in my head, coming out with what's in my head is important. It's important that I not only say what I mean, but mean what I say. That it's not jarbled when I'm giving somebody information or instruction, but they actually understand it. It's talking about, just the ability to be fluent, to be effective. And a lot of times I know you've heard people speak and you don't understand what they say. And you may have to say, pardon me, or excuse me, or can you repeat that? And it says to be articulate is that you've thought it out. It's well thought out, and then it's spoken, and it's stated. But it also talks about it's a persuasiveness, that talking, certainly, to be articulate is also a way to persuade others. It's a coherency. It's lucid, meaning that the person is not, they are functioning right. They are being able to put words together and they come out right. It says they're vocal. They said it sometimes they could be explosive. Good morning, Miss Rosie. It could be explosive. It's illuminating. If you're really articulating something, sometimes you can incite other people to feel a certain way, act a certain way, just function a certain way. That they just like what they're hearing, and it's encouraged. You can also incite them to do dangerous things too if people are that impressionable. But it says it's a real way to talk about something being understandable and being comprehensible. So articulation is really good if we really are people who look at left, right, up, down, fair, unfair, then we're looking at how well we're articulating ourselves to others. Sometimes we don't do a good job. We just don't. Sometimes we do. And when we do, we have to admit to it that we have to. Sometimes you can't wait for somebody to say it. You just have to say, I said all I was supposed to say, and therefore that's enough. Like even when I do, these sessions, I'm trying to make sure that what was given to me, and I tell you, I go through this every night or morning as to what I want to present on. And I've even done as much as gone to bed with one thing and wake up and write out another lesson the next morning before I come and speak. Good morning, Maurice. How are you? The point is that we use our heads for good, but some people use their heads for being evil or being mean or being, what I call oppressive. And so we have to use our heads right. And we can't let someone else's head override what we think, override how we act and what our head is telling us to do. I don't want to be so impressed by somebody that I misstep, such as to me, those that watched, the other officers that watched, George Floyd have his life leave him, were in a position to say something and they didn't. So to me, that also addresses the fact that sometimes not saying something and it's in your head, and then realize later on that you should have said something and it's still in your head, that would be troublesome. Because I'm quite sure since, his death, these men have gone through their heads over and over and over again. Why did we not say something? And, as they said, not saying something makes them basically a part of what happened. So anyway, when we talk about the last letter of head, we're talking about the D, which I call develop. Develop is to grow or cause the growth of something becoming more mature, more advanced, more elaborate. That's what, happens when we are developed. When you first put a seed in the ground, it is not developed. It cannot grow right from that point where it can be seen. But once it's out there, you give it the week or two and you're going to see it sprouting up, and then, it sprouts up too much that the little starter becomes too small for its roots, and it has to be repotted. And that's us. As we grow, we develop more, and we become more, what I call more barnacled. We become more on the outside of all the things that we have to present our lives going forward with. What is it that we're going to bring to the table? And we want to say that we know something. Just like I'm thinking all the tables that need to be started right now. And I know we're still in the middle of pandemic, but when pandemic is over, then we need to have discussions with people, to get in their head enough to find out how they feel. Because I think the millennials are getting it right, where they say, we can't go on and on and on and not discuss. We can't go on and on and no one confront, the elephant in the room. We have to address what's going on, and we have to look at this as being mature, as being a worthy discussion, a discussion that may straighten out the future from what the past has been. I tell you, we couldn't do it. We thought those of us who marched and did things in the 60s that we couldn't do. It didn't happen. And what's happened now is that this group, they are totally, totally different. In that they're not only are they young, but we were young then too, but not only are they young, but they're also multi-raced, multicultural, multi-idealists. But they have one main goal, which is to get to the point where race is not an issue. It is not an issue. It is everyone's life. Everyone lives as they live. So when we really talk about growth in our head and the development in our head, we're talking about, good morning, Dimar. We're really talking about expanding. How do we expand? Advancing forward, being somewhat successful at looking at our lives going forward. We bloom, we're set in motion, we establish ourselves, we evolve. I have a friend, a doctor friend, and at the end of all of her message, she always writes evolve, evolving. And a lot of times we don't know that we're evolving, but we need to. We need to make some changes for ourselves that may, in effect, help others just by our changing. Okay? The next thing is progress, to thrive, to make headway, to be more mature, of course, to expand, to prosper, to blossom. All those things talk about our development. And the development has to be, again, within our heads. It can't be that it's just that the TV tells us to do something and we do it. That may be counterproductive to who we are, may be counterproductive to what we do and even our livelihood. I don't want something taken away from me because I was associated with somebody that did something so heinous that it ended up and landed me in jail for 45 years, 25 years. I'm going to tell you right now, 20 days I couldn't do. 20 minutes I can't go. I just, to imagine me being locked up and not being able to use my freedom. I fight. I'm going to use my head for my freedom every day. And I'm always prayerful that the young people that are out there protesting will do the right thing for their freedom, for their voices to be heard, and certainly for their lives to be saved. That's what I look at. So today's questions are, it says, question 1 is for your head now. It says, what do you harbor? What do you harbor in your heart and in your head? Be honest. Can you address it and let it go? Don't know. I certainly hope so. Can you address it and let it go? You know, and sometimes just admitting that you have it is a start. You know, that's my counselor stuff telling you. Just admitting it. Some people will never admit that they're an alcoholic, but yet and still, you know, they come home and drink a case of beer at night. They're every night. Something's wrong. Okay? So you just have to talk about, what am I really harboring, and can I let it go? Number 2 is, do you make it a point to learn something daily? Do you make it a point? Are you a learner? Do you want to go back to school? Do you want to make some choices that change what you've done in the past? Don't know. You know, is there a degree you long to get, or a certification or a license that you want? You know, that's my specialty. You know, that's what my doctorate was on. You know, looking at going back and certainly understanding what it is what's required to work in certain career fields. And a lot of times, you know, when I worked with the military, they didn't know, because the military had a plan. Every day they were pretty much told what to do, when to do it, and how long they had to do it in. So I when I was asking those questions on my survey, they didn't know. They said they had no idea that, you know, on the outside that they needed an EMT certifications. Inside, if you're on the front line, you don't need EMT. You need somebody that's getting ready to, you know, give you some medicine. You know, you don't worry about what anyone has during times of war, but then there's other times. So I helped, you know, I like to say that I helped, you know, I would say make that more of a usual thing that they do, where they associate what the career is in the military and how ready they are for transitioning into the civilian workforce. That was my doctorate. And the next question is, can you articulate your true opinion and understand your position and be able to explain it? You know, do you just listen to other people? Does the TV tell you and then you repeat it? Or do you actually have your own way of expressing who you are? I would like to think all of us. You know, to me, freedom of speech means just that, the freedom of speech. You know, and I just try to make sure, you know, you keep the other bad language and you know, language that calls people, you know, horrible names, all of that out of it. But an opinion is an opinion. You know, and you have to understand that they have their opinion and you should have your own opinion. That's the best way to work it. And it says the last question is, do you make it a point to expand your horizon? You know, setting things up, really looking at development, meaning that you want something and so you go after it. You go back and you'll go through all of the requirements to get it. Do you make it a point? Have you done that? Are you going to do that? To me, this is just Sandy speaking. During the time of this pandemic, I have like revved up, doing so many other things that I was what I call pecking at before. You know, just a little bit of time here and a little bit of time there, because my time was so spread out with so many things for so many different organizations and people. But the pandemic gave me time to focus, time to develop, time to really once again come inside myself and say, what do you want to do? What is important to you? And sometimes we don't do that. We're so busy trying to be of the world and all the things that's going on in it. You know, every party, every dance, every conference. We're at all of that. But on the short line of it, what's the thing that you come up with? What's the total? What's the good of it? With how much did it cost? Not just in terms of finances, but time. We've spent a lot of time doing a lot of things for other people. So in our development, while we're down still, and some of them aren't down. I keep seeing they're getting ready to open up Sin City. I think Sin City opens up today, and so the rest of the country is starting to really open up and not really worried much about COVID-19 as much as they were, not as fearful, not as because I guess the numbers are going down in terms of the locals now. They still have large numbers, and I think the last time I looked, there was 103,000 people that had died from it. So I don't take it lightly, but I always say, what were you doing while you had these 2 months here and there, plus or minus down? What would you do? I want to say I did something that says I'm going forward and not back. I'm going up and not down. Unless I have to go down and get something in my basement. I always talk about my basement. So if I go down to my basement, I'm coming back up. I just have to go down there and clear something out. And then I'm coming back up. But I want you all to just think about your heads today. Your head leads to your heart. Your heart leads to your healing. Your healing leads to your happy. Okay? That's what I want you to do. Your head is very important. So when I ask you the question, are you stuck? You can say yes, temporarily. I'm stuck on this. But other stucks are going to come. Don't think they won't. Don't think they won't. They're going to come. And look, at night, if you, I have this book, I'm covered, Corona Chronicles. So it really just gives me an opportunity to write in this book. But I also went to the dollar store and I got me a dollar store book. And I write in this book at night. So I practice what I preach. So whatever I'm telling you, I'm already doing it. I try to really take up time with myself. But I want you to have a wonderful day. I want you to think about those lost words that you could be putting down on paper. I really want you to look at what's in your head and looking at what you harbor, how you're educating yourself, how articulate you are about your position, and how well you are developing. All those things come around and to and through your head. Use your head wisely today. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. But if you do, start writing it down, and you're going to come up with another solution. Look, you have a wonderful day. I hope to see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Central Time, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening and a productive afternoon. Bye-bye.